Joining me now, the Washington Post's Sari Horowitz, one of the reporters who broke this story. Sari, this would seem to confirm what James Comey appeared to indicate, what many have been sort of hinting at, but squarely you guys have nailed down, apparently, that Mueller is looking at obstruction of justice.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Chris, that the former FBI director in his testimony did seem to be laying out a case of possible obstruction. But what we found out that indeed, the special counsel, Robert Mueller, has expanded, widened the investigation to look at the president specifically and obstruction of justice. And we know that there are some important interviews this week, including senior intelligence officials who are coming before him really as witnesses because of conversations they, like FBI Director Comey, had with the president about the Russia investigation.
So these are Dan Coats, the Director of National Intelligence, and Mike Rogers, who's the National Security Agency. Previous reporting in your paper has indicated that both of these men were asked by the president in a meeting in the Oval Office where he asked everyone else to leave if they could do anything about the Flynn investigation, a kind of pattern of behavior, if true, very similar to what James Comey said about what the president did to him.
Yes, well, no, actually what we reported was that Dan Coats, who is the Director of National Intelligence, shortly after he was confirmed, was in a meeting in the Oval Office with another official, not Mike Rogers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With another official. And he was asked by the president if he could do something to get Comey to back off the Flynn investigation. Again, the former national security advisor who had resigned, who had left because of the Russia investigation and because he hadn't been truthful to the vice president. That was the first incident. Then, several days later, the president called Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA, and he called Coats and asked them both, and this was documented in the case of Rogers, it was documented by his deputy, asked them if they could publicly say something to the effect that there was no evidence of collusion between Trump associates and Russian officials to affect the 2016 presidential election.
And both of them declined to do that. So to get, I mean, the reason this seems significant to me, and when we've been talking to legal experts about the question of obstruction, a former federal prosecutor I had on my show last week said, look, you wouldn't make this case with one witness, meaning James Comey, that Coats and the question of what the president said to Coats, which he declined to answer under oath before the Senate the other day, that you're saying that Mueller is going to investigate him as part of this probe. I'm sorry, interview him as part of this probe.
Interview him as a witness. Yes, in our report, what we say, this is not a he said, Comey against Trump, but in fact, it also involves conversations between Coats and the president. Coats had just become the Director of National Intelligence, and also Mike Rogers, Admiral Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA, with a phone call with President Trump. Now, his deputy, Richard Ledgett, who's also going to be interviewed, we're hearing in the coming days, he's agreed to be interviewed. Wow. He documented this in an internal NSA document, the conversation the president had with Mike Rogers. And of course, Mike Rogers and Mr. Coats did not make any public statements as the president wanted them to.
I want you respond to the president's attorney, who says that this leak by the FBI is illegal. Regarding the FBI leak of information regarding the president, outrageous, inexcusable, and illegal. What do you say to that?
Well, as we report in our story, we have 5 sources. We don't say where they're from. We don't identify where they're from at all. All
right, Sari Horowitz, excellent reporting, and thank you for making some time tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.